Welcome to USAII AI Expert Talks, where we speak with technology leaders, innovators, and practitioners shaping the future of artificial intelligence. And I'm your host, Mike Spaeth, and today's conversation is titled Demos to Production: Why Most AI Agents Break and What Actually Ships. So today we're joined by Pranav Saji, an AI security leader at Symosis Security. And Pranav works at the intersection of AI, cybersecurity, and governance, helping organizations build secure, trustworthy, and production-ready AI systems. He's also an active writer and speaker, sharing insights on agentic AI, AI governance, and enterprise AI security. So throughout this conversation, he'll share what really works to move AI from impressive demos to production systems, why many AI agents never make it successfully into production. So Pranav, it's great to have you here with us.
Thanks, Mike. I'm really glad to be here. And I'll add one thing to that, which is that I've come at this problem from a few different directions. So I've been a CTO at two startups, a founding engineer at a Y Combinator company, and most recently, I was doing AI security work embedded inside Fortune 100 teams, including a stretch at LinkedIn. And the same problem shows up at all of these scales, right? So everybody can get a demo working. Almost nobody can get the demo to survive contact with real users. So that's the gap I live in. And I'm guessing that's most of what we are talking about today.
Yeah, and you've obviously built AI systems, some from different perspectives, as you mentioned. What do you see as the biggest single gap you see between an impressive prototype and a production-ready AI system?
Yeah. So this is the one I think about the most. And a prototype is built for the happy path, right? And production is everything else. And here's the part like people mostly underrate, right? So when you build a demo, you run the task once. In production, it runs like thousands of times. And what you care about is whether it works every single time. So if you do the multiplication on that, right, it's brutal actually. So an agent that runs 95% of the time gets eight in a row, right? So that's it does that in two-thirds of the time, right? So at 90%, that's like 43%. And 43% is the number that makes everybody in the room clap, right? So that's like the hard truth behind it. And I had this at LinkedIn. So I built a triage agent for the Jira Cube. Demo was great. 20 sample tickets, everybody really thrilled. And then it hit the real queue, right? And the real queue had tickets where the whole description is a screenshot with no text, duplicate from 4 months ago. And every so often, like somebody pasted a credential in the body. So now you got a secrets problem that you didn't plan for. And none of that is like a model problem. So what was missing was everything around the model. So that's how I think about this.
No, excellent. And as you mentioned, the problem could or could not be the model. But in the case of LinkedIn, you obviously had a rich data set. Do you also see potential issues on integration, observability, integrating within a workflow?
Yeah. So like when talking about like the workflows agent and like the tools pattern, right? So there is a lot that I need to tell. So when you are like starting with a solution, always start with a workflow and only reach out for an agent when you genuinely can't write the path down in advance, right? So if you know the steps and if you can draw it on a whiteboard, right, then just code it and use a model for the part that's genuinely hard for coding, which is like the language, right? So that's like where LLMs are like most uh, best in, right? So like extracting, classifying, ranking, and agent is used when the path branches based on like what you find, and even it's picking from a menu you wrote, right? So and the tools are the deterministic layer, and the model reasons, the code decides. So prompts are fine for tone, for style, for soft judgment. I'm talking about the stuff where being once wrong once like is unacceptable. Things like authorization, security policy that goes in code. That goes in like a code with a test attached to it, right? Because these are like really important systems that you're dealing with. And like through our LinkedIn too, like I've dealt with these cases, And you have to be like really careful when it comes to like authorization and security policies and so on. And integration has been like most of my part, and I always like made sure that all these practices are maintained properly while I was like building a solution. And let me take another quick example, right? So like I built a legal intake system where different users see different case files. Tempting move is to tell the model in the prompt to filter by a user, right? So like you cannot like actually like prompt filter, right? So because this is just like strings, and so now the query physically cannot like return a row because like the row level security is enforced, and that's like the right move. You have to like think as like the model doesn't have the permission to be wrong about that because it doesn't have access, and that's how you should configure the agents as well. And what's interesting is that like the security research landed in the same place. So people who spend like 2 years, so they were like trying to make the instructions or like prompt engineer so that the system doesn't hallucinate or prevents from prompt injection and things like that. But now like the shift has happened that you have to like move to something outside the model entirely, which is like a reference monitor, right? So that's like a 1970s idea. So we tried like better prompting for 2 years, and then it's like rediscovering the whole access control again. So yeah.
Yeah. And, thank you for that feedback. And when you're integrating AI into a workflow, are you integrating it into legacy systems, or are you adding new workflows that already have AI embedded?
Um, so are you mentioning about like legacy systems? Um,
Yeah. So when you're, let's say as an example, HR. So when you're embedding AI into HR, are you embedding it into existing HR systems, or are you adding an entirely new workflow that already has AI in it?
you need to like understand like which use case you are dealing with, and then you have to like build systems accordingly. Most of the use cases you don't need an AI. It's more you probably might need like a deterministic system or like think like workflow, right? So like a workflow is more like if you know the path exactly, right? So you could like build that, understand the use case, and then build the right solutions for it. So that's how I think about this.
If you were to determine which POC you should start with, so let's say you've got 10 ideas on
Uh,
where you should start with a potential POC, how do you
yeah.
determine where's the best place to start?
You need to like basically like understand like what the problem is, so basic understanding on like what the solution is, like how the solution adds value to the user who is like actually using it, right? First part of it is like writing the plan itself. You cannot like ideally start building with the thinking that you need like 100% working solution. Like basically understand like what are your goals and like how it impacts like the end users, and then like create like a whole detailed plan, and then slowly start implementing it like step by step. So that's how I approach a problem, and I believe like that would be like one of the ways to like navigate through every POCs.
No, thank you for that response. And are companies giving agents too much autonomy too quickly? Or do you feel that they're moving at a very cautious pace?
While I'm like dealing with a lot of like Fortune 100 clients, I've seen this trend that like there is like uh lot of permission that is like given to the agent itself, and I am actually kind of like against in the sense good agent is not like the one that has like a lot of permissions, right? Because you don't want like an agent to like touch on like very sensitive data, and you don't want like an agent to have a lot of access that even like a user using it does not have, right? An agent could like go to a system or like like a solution that it does not really want to touch. Think like sensitive files, or like deleting something, and so actions that is not supposed to perform, right? So enterprise organization does not have like a clear guardrail on like keeping this under control, and like that's like probably like one biggest point of failure that I've seen across industries.
No, thank you. And what would you see as a successful or a proper evaluation framework for an AI application? So, do you have specific success criteria, and what would that be?
I need to like first like address the issue that I've seen like usually in the systems, right? So every team I talk to has like observability, right? So and they don't have like evals. And for for LLMs, it's like the most important thing, right? So like they have dashboards, they have like token counts, they have the whole setup. And when you ask the output is any good and it goes quiet, right? And observability tells you like what happened, and evaluations or like evals tells you what whether like it was worth happening, right? A robust evaluation framework has like 4 layers, and usually like I've seen this trend that people skip the third. So the first one is deterministic, right? So tools, parsers, schema validation, that's just like normal testing. The second is components, measure retrieval on its own. So third one is trajectory, and this is the layer that gets skipped the most. You need to like understand if the agent get to the right output sanely, right? So you can get the right answer through a completely unacceptable path, and if you're only scoring outputs, you won't find that until it costs you money, right? And the fourth one is outcome. And my favorite metric in the whole stack is human override rate. And the philosophy behind this is like, probably like your eval set should be like the mostly scar tissue, right? Every production failure becomes like a permanent test case. And so if like a eval is like written before launch and it never grew, that's just like a document, right?
That's very helpful to get a good understanding of the outcome. And is it a closed open or actually an open loop outcome where the humans are giving feedback on the responses? Or is it more you're testing during the evaluation process?
Yeah, so actually it's both before production. You need to like basically understand what the system is like, and you need to like identify the right evals for like all these use cases, right? So for most of the cases, the evals cannot be like written in code, right? Because like as LLMs came, it's not as easy as like you write like bunch of like test cases and you just like pass through it and it just like magically works, right? So you need to like think about like strategies like um using LLMs as a judge and things like that has to be like done pre-production, and you need to like build basically something like a golden data set. You actually like pass this production ready systems through this golden data set and see if everything is all lined up properly. After production too, like there could be like multiple other issues that could come up too. So you need to like keep a track of, keep on like improving your golden data set. And then it's more like a continuous process than like a one-time process.
You obviously get to see, the progress of the LLMs. How have you seen the progress from a year ago, 2 years ago, even 6 months ago in the accuracy of the LLMs?
Earlier like you used to like see titles like prompt engineer, right? So that was like a thing like 2 years back, and that's when like the LLM was slowly like getting popularity, right? The AI space is like more evolving towards evaluations, context engineering, data engineering, like forward deployed engineering. So that's like the direction that the AI engineering role itself like is evolving, right? So context and data engineering, and that is like the next part. And I don't mean like vector database trivia, right? So knowing where your organization's real data lives and what permission the model has, right? So and systems engineering is like the next main part, and all, let's say like all the queues, the retries, the item potency, that was like already hard previously too. Like it's probably going to become more hotter in the upcoming years is what I'm thinking. And obviously like security, right? So it could like do some scary stuff. And so I think like the whole job uh, is like drifting from like an AI engineer role to more towards like a reliability engineering for like probabilistic systems.
Yeah, and you mentioned job titles. I have a lot of members of my family that have just graduated from college, and some of them are looking beyond their entry level job. What are some of the titles that people should look for, let's say under 25, for their first job or second job?
So you need to like understand the basics first, and you need to like understand like the software practices, like what works like behind the scene, right? So like it's always coming to like reliability and like how well the system is performing, like how well you can like write security. The hardest part is like understanding like what the LLMs can access, like how you can like set guardrails around it, what would be like the best way to like make use of AI and things like that. And you need to like move fast in this economy as well, right? So as I already mentioned, like the AI engineering title is slowly like drifting towards like the reliability engineering, right? So that's how I think about this.
And what type of advice would you give someone who's at the beginning of their AI journey, learning about LLMs? Where would you recommend that they go to build out the necessary skill sets, or what are those necessary skill sets?
A lot of people are like entering like AI right now, and right now like we are optimizing hard for the things like that has like the shortest like half life, a workout, what compounds and like what deprecates and so on. Basically understand every time like there is like bunch of like tools or like frameworks that are like, coming up in the market. You need to like understand what the domain itself you're working on is, learn the domain underneath and like have like a fair understanding on like what you're building. Earlier it was like you need to like write code, debug code, and since you're like writing code, it's like much more easier to find out like where the issue was because you are writing the code. Right now what happens is like the LLM is writing code, and there could be like a lot of ways like where the LLM could go wrong as well. So debugging is the actual differentiator, and it's like one skill that survives every model generation because like the model itself can like change, but the skill for like debugging it, like that doesn't go away. So that's like one thing. And again, as I already mentioned, don't skip the fundamentals.
Yeah, and I know you've been the founder of multiple companies. Let's say you were being, going to start a new company. Where would you start as a AI project that would have the biggest ROI?
There was like a survey in 2026 that tells like 83% of organizations get measurable returns from agents, right? And there's also like an equally credible one saying that like about 6% see AI move company earnings, right? Thing is, they are not asking the same question. So the first one is ask like whether you are getting value out of agents, and the second one is like whether AI moved the economics of the whole company, right? So those are like two different things. So my advice is like stop hunting for the industry testers. Like, can you verify the output in seconds? So the seconds is like the main part.
It's easier to found a company now because of AI, because of LLMs, than it was 5 years ago.
Uh, I would say like to an extent, yes. So why? Because so it's like much more easier for like a LLM to create like a basic MVP. Every day there's like a new company, and like the user adoption itself has gone down like a huge margin. When it comes to scaling, it's much more difficult right now because it's very hard to like find a real user using the solution that you built. The whole idea of what a responsible deployment or like what we think about like agents or like security is like kind of changing or like evolving.
Where should the humans play a role in this process, especially after agents have been given permission to take autonomous action?
I would say like humans should be like in control of like most of the major decisions. So think like authorization. They want to like access some sensitive information, or like let's say like a company is dealing with lot of like high valued data. The agent has to like process like transactions more than like let's say like $1,000 or something, right? So I would definitely want like human in loop. So that's like the most important thing. And so there are like humans involved in like the end-to-end process, and especially when it comes to like HIPAA compliant systems or like systems that are dealing with lot of like high valued information, right? Even though like you can tell that AI agents is like as autonomous as it is, but still you need human agent to kind of set the guardrails or like keep the AI under control.
So let's say AI agents are actually digital employees. Do they need to go to the human, who's the human in the loop, to ask permission, to access controls? How should that work in the future?
There needs to be like a human that is like the ultimate that makes like the ultimate judgment, right? We don't really know like what happens in 10 years because like that's probably going to be like a different direction. Like probably like the LLMs might be like as intelligent or like even like more intelligent as like a human. They could just have like the reasoning capability, the capability to like, use the right actions, like mostly like the ethical actions too. LLMs right now can do like really good job at like reasoning, but where it lacks right now is like how it performs the actions, right? It's not as good as like how a human would perform these actions. So so we don't know like in 10 years that might like totally change. And it's always like physical AI and like even like humanoid robotics is becoming a thing now. So we don't know like how this is going to like evolve in like next decade or so.
What would you say is a widely accepted belief about AI today that we'll look back on and let's say 5 years from now and look at it very differently?
AI has like a lot of features and like might be like even the use of tools, like the use of agents, and we probably might think like the LLMs is like the best thing out there and like probably like outperforming humans, but we don't know like how that is going to like be in like next 5 years or so, right? The systems that are actually made money will turn out to be have like narrow uh, constraint or like even like boring systems. So I mean that could be the case. And so because like autonomy is not just like a feature, right? It's like a cost you accept when supervision is more expensive than the errors.
Yeah, and you mentioned a keyword, autonomy. Do you feel that there's going to be a time when autonomous humanoid robots will be cooking, cleaning, performing tasks that we currently do today?
uh Yeah, so honestly, I want to be like, it's really not my field into
Sure.
like the physical AI and like, or like an AI software AI perspective, right? So Hyundai announced like tens of thousands of units across their plants. And I also noticed that like BMW ran like humanoids on a real line for the better part of the year. But look at where they work. What I've seen is like the humanoids or like the physical AI right now uh, works in like bounded task. So mostly like in structured environments, like and moving thoughts and parts, right? So my honest prediction is that like physical AI gets solved in the same way and the same order, like narrow task, hard boundaries, heavy supervision, and years of unglamorous safety engineering that nobody makes a keynote about, right? The robot demos are ahead of them, robot evals, and that gap is where the accidents live. So, as per my opinion.
On the topic of predictions, do you think we hit AGI, the singularity, year, 5 years, 10 years? Are we already there? Well, any predictions on that?
What I would think, actually, changing my mind. Like today, like systems are like extraordinary at reasoning and unreliable at doing certain things, right? As I mentioned, so they can like plan a task better than most people, and then fail on the eighth repetition of it. So if I see a system that can run for a month, let's say like without any supervision in an environment nobody is prepared for it, and then like I trust it, and that's not a benchmark score, right? Like not a bigger model, and that's like real like that's like the real goal, right? And that's the same thing I just said about robots as but general. It isn't like a capability problem anymore, right? It's a verification problem, and the verification is moving much more slower than the capability, and that gap is a honest answer to the question. So maybe I might be wrong. Like, maybe like ask me the same question in a year, and I might have a different way about this or a different opinion about this. And it's always that like it's changing a lot faster
Yep.
than we can imagine.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, things are changing. And our listeners, are always asking us, is there a book? Is there a podcast? Is there a video? Is there a research paper
Mhm.
that our guests can recommend to listeners to really keep up?
A book I recommend most to the people building AI system isn't really like an AI book. It's actually like so one book that really impressed me is like Designing Data Intensive Application. So it's written by Martin Klipman. So and the timing is good because the second edition just came out in March, and it was like co-written by Chris Riccomini, and they rewrote the whole thing for the last decade of technology. This was like a book that came out like a decade back, and like the new edition just became like a rewrote with the technology change that was like involved in the last 10 years or so. So for staying current, I'll also like point at Simon Willison's because it's like constantly like evolving and it's
Yeah.
always like staying current. And it always shows like what's most reliable signal on what's actually real versus what's a demo.
Thank you for joining us today. And I've had personally many big takeaways. I learned a lot from our conversation. I'm sure our listeners did. So thank you for your perspective, and thanks to everybody listening and joining us for another episode of USAII AI Expert Takes. I'm Mike Spaeth. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Mike.